guys, just before we start the video, I just wanted to remind you, January 1st, head on over to my website where you can get entered into the raffle to win the Chop and Drop limo. You're going to purchase a sticker, $25 sticker at 100 spots. The more stickers you buy, the more chances you have to win. If you didn't miss that last episode on the build series for it, I'll put it up in the video right now. This is the Chop and Drop limo. We took a factory store-bought bicycle. We chopped, we dropped, we added our own accents, we added a tank, we added a fender, we added all the goods, powder coated in root beer, true brass, accents, spikes, all that good stuff, and it could be yours. Make sure, again, January 1st, head on over to the website, use your Christmas money, make it a New Year's resolution. I'll see you guys real soon. What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. We are doing another little extra give you episode for this year. Before we end it off, I just want to throw it out there. This is how you build a diamond tube frame, or a square tube if it really upsets you that I said that it's diamond tube. So if you need to know the materials that I use, how I bend it, the stuff that you need to go buy, it's all going to be in this video. This was a two-part video that I did not too long ago, maybe a little bit over a year, but I took both videos, put it into one, edited it a little bit better, kind of like I did the build series video that I just did the week prior. Seemed to enjoy it. But hey, make sure you guys like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll see you Sunday and for the last video of the year. All right, later.
We are going to start doing some square tube frames. So I got the bender done, ready. Everything's been finished, welded on. It is ready to go. Added the wing kit. Added the, these are the V dies you need. Those are the dies that you need to bend the square tube so that it looks like a diamond shape. Bottle jack just makes everything way easier to get it lifted up in the air. Spring keeps all the tension. This is what's going to hold the pipe threaders that you get from Harbor Freight. Helps with just making everything electric. I'll show you guys that video here in a second. Here's your tubing. So a big thing to know about doing square tube is that the die can go up to 1.5 inches. But what that does is it actually spreads the metal. So you only need to do 1.25 inches to get the same appearance as 1.5 inches round. That makes any sense? I don't know. What it does is once you put them in these dies here and you smash them down, and as it bends it, it actually spreads this metal here and it gives it a wider appearance. So you don't need to go any bigger than 1.25 inches, which is a good thing because it's actually a little cheaper, and you can do 1 inch for the chain stays. So we've got ourselves some 1 inch here. Your 7/8 will fit inside that 1 inch. So I'm going to make handlebars on this one. I'll show you how to make handlebars. All of this is 16 gauge. 16 gauge, 1.25 inch square, 1 inch square will get you where you need to be with these. If you go to 1.5 inches, super hard to bend. A big thing with these, so that you guys know, when you're using these V dies, make sure you use a lot of lube because the metal will actually eat into these really bad. Did that before. Found out the hard way. Ask me how I know. Wanted to show you guys a quick test piece. So this was a smaller piece that I had, but just to give you guys kind of an idea, this here turned in to this here. You get the idea now of what that'll do. I'll probably use this piece for something. Don't want to waste it, but that's what the bender does. You can see how much you lose though. Like you're gonna lose because it moves, just like my bender over there, because it moves it so much further away from each other. You're losing about 8 inches off of the pipe, so that kind of stinks. It's quite a bit of metal loss there, but you get the idea. So I'm gonna clean this up real quick, not make you watch. And ready, all cleaned up. We can go ahead and probably do some bends in the machine. Let me get that all set up over there, and then we'll be able to see if I can do it. Guys, kind of an idea of how all this works, and we'll put a piece in and get it done. Alright guys, so when you're going to use this bender, like I said yesterday, you need to do a lot of lube. So either some WD-40, I like using some cutting oil, something strong enough that's really going to help here. Another tip for you too is that this is seamed metal, which means when it was attached, they ran a basically a weld down the center here, or down this piece. If you're going to put that, when you're bending it, you want to make sure it's on the inside of your bend. and try to get it all on the same direction. So when I bend this, I'm going to bend it this way or this way, doesn't matter. But you want that seam to be on the inside of the frame. So when you're looking at the top of the frame, you're not seeing this seam because that'll show up there. All right, so another big thing too is you want to get this ready to be adjusted. So when you're putting this in here, you kind of want to just slide it back and forth a little bit, let the dies get straight, and then you can start cranking this down. And this is what makes this a lot easier to use, because you can sit here and do this instead of having to twist this top up here. That'll make it, almost makes it impossible to use. So get it on there, slide it back and forth. Once you get tension on this middle piece here, you want to slide this back and forth because you need to get this center die can move back and forth, and you want everything to be straight. So get it in there, get it where you need it, and then we're going to hook up the pipe threader and do the rest. You got the pipe threader on. You kind of get the idea as how this moves it back and forth. If I had the big wheel on here, then I have to crank it by arm. This isn't the hard part. The hard part is when you're actually getting into the crank. So same thing as when you're doing round tube, you're going to go ahead and put that center of the die. Get it where you need it. Tighten her down. Maybe like a couple pumps. You don't need to go crazy because you don't want to start crush. This stuff crushes pretty easy. But hopefully, I'll put you guys on time lapse and we should be able to see it start to bend. Alright, that wasn't so bad. This is actually my first time ever using one of these. I've always used the big, huge wheel here, which you still can use. It doesn't make it so that you can't. They just suck. But anyway, that still works just fine. So no need for this thing. You guys can see here, clean this up. I got a pretty good bend out of it. As you can see, that's got a pretty decent bend. One thing I do got to warn you guys on metal tubing, and I kind of did it here. I'm sorry, not metal, because of course it's metal. Square tubing. The more you bend this, and I probably went a little bit further than I wanted to, you will pick up small dents in areas if you're not careful. So I did get a little one there, which I can fix, but gives you kind of an idea. Let me clean this up and then I'll go put it on the table. All right, so here you can see, now you can see the bend I got, which I got a really good bend out of this one. We'll chop it here. This will go across here. The cool thing about doing square tube, some people are going to tell you that doing square tube is harder. I don't think so. It may be a little bit more difficult to bend. Square tube can only go in one direction, and when it lays down on the table, it's going to lay flat. Like, it doesn't have a choice because it's laying down on its bend. When it's time to do things like notching or cutting and trying to get an angle out of it, it can only go one way. You're not guessing. So like here's an example is when I have to cut this here, I don't have to worry about this end not being the same area. You can only cut from here to here. It's not round. So when you're doing a round tube and you're trying to figure out which end, you have to sit there and look down the tube, you're looking down it, trying to see that is that end notch the same way as this back end? Is everything perfectly straight? Well, with square tube, you don't have to worry about that. Also, another cool thing, when you're welding the square tube, you've got these nice flat areas to weld to. You're not welding a round tube. And I'm pretty excited too, because when I was doing square tube, I didn't have the tube notcher, and that does take square tube. As you can see, it has the square tube area. So that's going to be cool to be able to do a nice notch in those and not doing them by hand, because I swear it wants to cut your finger off. I'm going to do a few more bends on that. I don't need to show you guys that again, but I need to do a few more bends. So I did get all the bending done. So I've got my main, front, my backbone. I guess that's my down tube, sorry. Down tube, backbone. Seat tube here, bottom tube there. This is just the extra because this will get clipped and then go into the seat. I'll show you guys the drawing here in a minute. So what we need to do is just cut our ends off so you can see where it crushes it. This is what you're going to lose all of that. So we're going to cut that off so it's out of our way. And then we can get into start doing the tubing notcher on the square tube. which I'm kind of excited about. I don't know why, but because I've never done it. So I think I've done it once, but not in this form. I'm happy about that. Let's get to cutting, get some metal grind. Alright, so everything's bent, everything's cut. Now, just like any other frame, we're going to go through and start placing where we want our stuff. I went ahead and I labeled what I needed so that I knew where it would go. There, I think. Backbone, play there. Probably there to there. Kind of like it to come a little bit further down. Do like our seat. Yeah, we'll make that work. Gonna probably run 29s on this frame. These are a lot different than when you're doing round tube because you don't turn them and run them into the frame. You notch them to the frame, which I'll show you guys. Just trace it on so I have it on the table. Now we can really see where that's gonna go. Like I said, cool thing about flat tube is that you're gonna just draw a line and then you're gonna cut through that line and that'll leave you flat. When you're doing round tube, you're just kind of trying to get it as flat as you can on a round surface. This makes it easy. You'll lay this down, you'll cut this directly across like that. It's flat. It'll butt up next to the next piece that'll be here, which will go from there to there. And then these two will just button up and then you'll shape this so that you'll notch it here and it'll lay right in there. So when you're like on square tube frames, all I'm basically doing here is cutting them like that to allow that to fit into that notched area. You're not coping as much, or you're not coping at all other than the head tube because everything's, four sides flat. Okay, so from a fitment standpoint, I never would have got this kind of a fitment trying to do it by hand. But look at how good that came out. Like it coped it, I just got to push that together, but it coped it so good. This machine, you guys go give them a follow. It's Chicago brand and they are on Instagram. They are a family owned, smaller company, but that machine's amazing. I've said it a lot. And they don't sponsor me by any means, but they are a great company. Always answer my questions. Even did a giveaway for me, so go give them a follow on Instagram, guys. I'll put the link in the description to their Instagram. Go give them a follow. I'll put a link to the description also in to their website if that's something you want. It's not a cheap machine. That saved me probably an hour. So what's an hour worth to you? One thing I want you guys to know about square tubing is yes, it does lay flat on the table, but don't forget that it has this little lip area right here, okay? So if you're going to build the frame on the table like I'm doing here, it is going to lift the head tube up off the table. So don't put any major weld to it until you get it in the jig, just in case you have to adjust it. Because what it could do is you could have your head tube could be cockeyed a little bit. So because this gets pushed underneath, just give it a little tack right here and right there. Don't get all crazy with it. That way if you need to cut it off and you can adjust it once it's in the jig and you make sure the head tube's straight. Other than that, the rest of it will lay completely flat. What I did was I shoved it up under there and then I clamped the head tube down so that it's pushed up against it and both of the tubes are underneath it. So I should be fine, but just like a little cheat code tip for you. Take it for what you will. What I think I'm going to do now is go ahead, start really focusing on bottom tube, seat tube, and then I'm going to do the bottom tube first. I want the bottom tube lined up. I'd like to be able to keep taking this off and on if I need to. Do the bottom tube. You kind of, with a square tube frame, you want to get all your bottom section seat stuff done before you do your top tube, because all that's going to slide in like a puzzle. It's not like round tube where you just cope it and you stick it in there. This is going to actually have to slide down that groove. I'm going to work on this tube here, throw in the bottom, go ahead and grind it, into an angle. And then once I've got that part done, we'll work on that seat post. All right, guys, so just I wanted to show you super quick. So like I was saying, when you cut these, see how like you can't really mess these up. I mean, you can, but they're way easier to cut than doing round tube because you're going to cut it to an angle and all you're doing is cutting it straight. You take the flap wheel and really dial it in. Way easier than if you were doing round tube, because round tube's so hard to tell if it's off centered. Now that I've cut this end, when I go down to the other end, I can't help but cut it the exact same way. Where when you have a round tube frame, you don't know if you're dead centered when you cut this one to when you cut this one. So you gotta take your time a little bit more, but this is why I like square tubing, and I think it's easier. A lot of people do not, but whatever. We got the bottom tube, so you've got your down tube, your bottom tube, and now you kind of see what I mean, like how good these fit up. I gotta do a little bit more cleaning up on the tip because the way they're touching, it's got a little bit of a gap, but you can see how much easier it is, because all you're gonna do is you're gonna weld in here, you're gonna weld there, you're gonna grind that back. This is what I was talking about when I'm saying, like, when you're in here and you've got to weld on round tube and you've got to get up inside of here and clean all that up and then shape it. You don't have to do that with square. Just run your bead here, grind this off to a point, makes a really cool looking front point. So now we're gonna do the same thing with the back. I'm gonna run that tube up here, seat's gonna go there, and we'll be booking and shaking. So now I got the full frame in, all done up. Bottoms are finished there. We've got the point over here. Seat post, like I said, we're not going to mess with the top tube yet. That goes last. I am going to go ahead and tack all this in so this doesn't move, and then that way I can lay this down. I will connect this bar with the swoop, and then I will adjust the swoop to start to fit so that it fits there, and does all that. I still need to tack in that top tube, the backbone, but you kind of see where I'm getting with this. That'll go to there. I still need to tack those and those here, but you can see, if I can show you, that's how you get that kind of fitment there. You get it to where you just hug it. So you just do a little cut there, and you're just trying to follow this line up here. You're going to get those two, then you're going to touch to the head tube. Same as before. Quick time lapse. I'm going to tack all this stuff together before I can put it into the jig. Alright, so there you go. This is the start of doing a diamond tubed frame. All we got really left to do is a center bar, which I'm going to wait till I do the legs because this is, like I said, I have to show you the design. I left it up in the house, but the line is going to come from here to here, here to here. So it's going to be a straight line in the back, but the back leg is going to swoop. Now, on square tubes, the chain stays are a little harder to do than they are the round because you can't bend them the same way. You have to put them in angles, you have to weld them together, you have to align the angles here, depending on what you want to do. You can either splice them this way, or what I like to do is run a piece of tube here, it comes out, and then the legs go this way. So, but you got to get these angles correct, or it makes it real complicated to do it. So, out here, and then back. This one same way, this will come here down, and then what I like to do here is cap it into this area so that all the pressure is pushing here. It's hard to take a tube, or at least a square tube anyway, to bend it this way and then turn it and not have it, you know, trying to figure out, because it's going to be at a different angle. It's not going to be at the same angle. So that's going to take some time. I'm going to work on the back end done, and we should be able to button it up because I did all this from basically a couple hours at night bending it over there and then to where you see it now. So not a bunch of time in this one. This one's going to be known as Envy. So this right here is going to be a frame that you can order from me. Other than that, here's what we are. Last week we started on the diamond tube frame over there. This week we're gonna finish it. We're gonna knock out these chain stays, the seat, bottom bracket, clean up all the welds. So off camera I went ahead and I did weld the frame up, and I want to show you guys, this is what I'm talking about when welding the square tube. You can run a nice little bead down in there, super easy. They get super clean, you get really good penetration. I went ahead off camera also and went ahead and did the seat post. So on these kind of frames, since this is, again, 1.25 inch, 16 gauge. This is 1 inch, 16 gauge. That's a 7/8 inch tube, which is what your standard handlebar grips or your seat posts, all 7/8. Doesn't matter diameter wise. I think it's 0.065. You can go thicker. I wouldn't go smaller just because that takes some weight. But anyway, what you can do is this fits inside of there with a little persuasion, a little bit of hammering. This does go down inside of there. So you figure out where you want your seat where you want your seat at. I lined it up there. This slides inside of here. So what I'll do is I will tack that right there, and then I'll burn that all the way in. You are going to have a little bit of play, but no big deal. You're MIG welding. Maybe if you're TIGging, that might be an issue, but with the MIG weld, that should be fine. I just push it back as far as I can, and I'll tack it right there on the corner, tack it, go in there, and then finish weld all the way around it. It ain't going anywhere. I went ahead and I cleaned up some 1" so we can get started on these legs. Chain stays, they'll go something like this here. You'll put them in sideways, probably have go up a little bit. I don't really know how I'm gonna do it yet. Probably gonna go right in there, and then this one's gonna have a nice swoop to it. I like to do with the square, it's a lot easier to do the swooping legs. We'll get on that real quick. I'm gonna go ahead and tack this seat in, at least get that where I want it, and then we'll move on to the back. Super simple to do. Seat will go on like so, where I want it. It's a little bit of cleaning up to do on there, but I've got to clean up the rest of the frame anyway. Not gonna make you guys watch me clean the frame. Get that done, and then we can get started on the chain stays. So I went ahead, I went through, cleaned up the frame. Then I went ahead and I sanded it with 60 grit, just to make sure I didn't have any gouge marks from the grinder, which really show up on this, just because it's a flat surface. If you start nicking it with your grinder, it will show up. I did want to show you guys what a good like transition you can get when you're doing square. Be careful, because it's almost like an arrow and it's super sharp, but I mean, that's super sharp. Probably cut yourself there. But you can see what a really nice transition you get when you're doing square tube, and the way you can grind your welds to a point like that. So yeah, all finished there, ground down. I even got the point on the upper tube there. You see how it all transitions, looks really good together. I really love that peak. So now we'll put the frame in the jig. I already cleaned up some 1" over there, which we need to get bent up and get ready to start doing the chain stays. Let's put it back in the jig and then figure that out. I went ahead and I broke out the chop saw. Don't really use this much, but in order to get some of the angles and wanting to make sure that I can duplicate it, I went ahead and I broke that out. Yeah, so this will go here. It'll lock on like that. You see it'll get welded right to that post. This will get welded back here like so, and we'll cap off the end, but it'll give it a nice clean straight line. And then down here, we'll have this one will go here and swoop down, and it'll go something like that. I'll probably do this more at a 90 just to get that to sit correctly, but again, another complicated one because you got to duplicate these two sides, and sometimes, I don't know if you guys can see it in the camera, but this isn't a straight across cut. You got to come at it from an angle, come at it from the bottom, so there's some differences there. So it's a lot of just putting it on, playing around to get it to fit on there correctly, giving it a little bit of massage by a little. So I do know how long this one is. Just going to take this other piece here. I'll cut that piece off. I'll do the cut in the saw first, then I'll cut this off, and then I'll match it up to this one. So at least we're relatively close to the same. Alright, so those are the legs, chain stays, seat stay, whatever you want to call it. A simple thing with the square on these though is capping it off is a lot easier than round. You can also do some pretty cool points if you wanted to. You can come through here. I'm not going to do it on this frame because I'm trying to make this one as simple as possible, but you can take a cut and do a nice cut across here and all the way to here, and then do the same. It'll give you a nice slant. You cap that off and it gives it a nice looks really cool looking point, like it comes in that way. But like I said, on this frame, not doing that, trying to make this one as simple as possible, as quick as possible. So right now I'm just going to cap it with a square. We'll cut this off in the shear over there, cap it, grind it, clean it, and then we'll get it installed. That's done. What I'll do now is get them mocked up so that I can start welding them. I think what I'm gonna do is, because I have not ran a wheel stance like this before, where I'm basically using the ground clearance as the bottom of the frame, I think what I would like to do is just tack this stuff on so that I can break it apart and put the wheel on and kind of see where we look from there. I think we'll be fine, but I just want to make sure. I'm gonna go ahead, clamp all this stuff in place, then we'll go through, burn it all in. Legs tacked in just for now. Super level, definitely like that. Very small incline, so that'll allow me to run the center tube off of here, and I think I'm gonna curve it. I was gonna run it straight, but I've been doing that a lot lately, so I think I want to curve that one. I think that'll give it a neat look there. Everything's just gonna remain tacked right now until I can test fit the wheel. I don't want to pull that apart until I know I got it where I want it. Then we can go ahead, we'll do the bottom bracket, which I already cut out, and that, again, tube notcher, freaking amazing. Made it so much easier to put that bottom bracket in square tube. Let's get on the lower chain stays. Like I said, this is a little bit more complicated now, but we need to get them on there, tack them into place, figure out where I want them, and then keep moving forward. All right, so we got our first bend. It's a little like this. I can kind of see where I'm going. You'll just make a support from the bottom to this main point. And earlier I said 90 degrees. It's a 45-degree cut, not 90. You will have to clean this a little bit, because when you do cut it, you're putting it in there and you want it to be a nice straight even cut, and the other side you'll be flipping the other way. Now what you'll do, yes, I went and got a new chop saw because I hated that one. I needed something better, but anyway, what you're gonna do is take whatever's left over and go ahead and cut that also at a 45, and then you'll weld it to this. Then you'll figure out your distance on the frame. At least that's how I do it. Once I've done it once, then I'll know. But right now, it's been so long that I don't remember how long that bottom one needed to be. So I'm just gonna cut, weld it to this one, and then once I'm done with that, I'll figure out the length and chop it to where I need it from there. Chain stays, bottom, lower chain stays. Got a nice swoop to them. I did have a dial gauge that I had to use to get both of these. What I would say is, if you are going to do this, buy the tubes in longer lengths, especially for the chain stays, just because trying to make both sides the same is a little bit more complicated than if you just had one long 8-piece. And then if you had the one long 8-piece, you could cut it down the center, use both sides, and it'd be the same bend. In this case, I had to put it in there, check the dial indicator on each end to make sure they both had the same bend. Super close, probably just 0.20 off maybe, but that's not noticeable. Other than that, this is kind of how you do it. You're gonna put these posts on here, then you're gonna cut them to length once you figure out what you need. So you'll do one side, then you're gonna do the other. That way, you've got them exactly where you want them to be. But first, I need to go in here, weld these up, clean all that up. All right, so bringing it down here as far as I can, like I was saying, you're gonna do some massaging. So what I do is I cut this at the same angle as the tube, but then you're gonna come at it from this way a little bit, just because of the way it's turned. So once I line it up here, as you can see, it lays, well, I don't know if you can see, but it lays directly down. Probably a little bit more massaging just to get it completely flat. But here, let me bring you around, give you an idea of what it is that I'm talking about. So once I've laid it up here on the top, I'll come in here and it's gonna lay on top of the frame. So I got a little bit more massaging to do here because the tube is trying to lean this way more than it is not gonna stand straight up. And you can totally do this. If you bend this enough here, if you put enough arch in there, you could just lay that flat, which is probably what I will do from now on, is maybe a little bit more of a flat rake just to get it so that or sorry, not a flat rake. Give it more of an arc so that this down at the bottom can be more flat, and I'm not trying to adjust. But for this one, since I've already done it, I'm just gonna keep trimming this back so that it's at more of an angle, and then it'll sit on here. Because right now, that would have been fine if I angled it more. So I'm gonna grind that down some more, copy it to the other leg, and I'll show you how I do that. All right guys, I'm gonna show you the best way I know how to show you. I will take my tube, I will lock it down to the back. So I'll take this tube and I'll line it up where I want it centered. There's my center line. I've already drawn my center line. And then what I'll do is I'll come over here and I will trace out where I want the other tube. Basically, you're just making a box. Eyeball it a little bit. There's your tube right there. Come down to the front of it. If you guys can see this, I don't know. And this might not be the way everybody does it. It's just the way I do it. This is going to give me an idea where I need to be. This one I need to erase. That was off. There's that. This brings you to the center. So now you know you're at the center of the bottom tube, and then you can run this across. So now you know there's your box. Kind of run that line across there, do it across the other side, and then just adjust as needed as you're doing it. That should be fine. I am going to weld the other side on first so that I can make sure that my distances between here and here are the same. I want the same distance. So I'll weld the other one on first and then adjust this one accordingly. Alright guys, so that, I threw my 29x4 on the back. She looks really good. I am very much enjoying that. Got a good chain line, no interference, should be just fine. This is a bigger wheel than what's going to get used, but I am so digging that. Alright, let's get the bottom bracket on, throw in that center bar, which I think really needs a nice curve, probably almost definitely, because it's just what it needs, and we can wrap this thing up. I definitely feel like that's the flow. I tried. What I'm really trying to go for was trying to run that tube here and then kind of like that. I was going to go straight, but I've just done it so many times I just wanted to switch it up. So I'm going to weld that in, and we'll flip the frame over, get everything else finished welded, and then we'll go put some wheels on it, see what she looks like. And there she is, guys. Amazing. I love it. I missed square tube so much. I mean, I like round tube, frames look great, but something about a square tube frame, diamond tube frame does something. Gets me all tickly. This is sitting on 29s. These are my wheels going on the build-off bike, but I had to see what it was going to look like. You guys can see she looks so good. I'm glad I went with the turned down tube in the middle instead of a straight one. I love the way it came out. Hardest part was the back legs, of course. The chain stays are pretty difficult when it comes to square. The actual frame itself was not too bad. That vendor did amazing. Everything is super straight. I'm very, very happy with how she came out. But that's gonna be it. Lawless makes a triple tree, square tube triple tree, which you can purchase from him directly, or you can buy mine. I use his trees, but I use my own legs, and then I use my own drops. So if you want a full Seabird Customs frame, so that it has the CB on the dropouts, but it also has the CB, I don't know where they are, has the CB on the kickouts for the fork, because you gotta have the fork has to kick out or you'll hit the head tube. But yeah, I am digging it. I hope you guys like it. I'm gonna shoot you guys, give you some B-roll here in a minute, but see you guys next weekend. Later.